Now in this presentation, we are going to discuss about the safety in engineering industry, and one of the topic in that engineering industry is IT industry. So we are talking about a specific industry now, so that is information technology industries. So nowadays it is called as IT industry only. From that industry only we can understand there are many computers, laptops, desktop, or some electronic devices which are used in that industry. So in the engineering industries, normally we are discussing or we are thinking about the operations like grinding operations, welding operations, cutting operations, rolling operations, shipping operations, sizing operations, etc. But in this engineering industry, we are talking about the IT related safety hazards, precautionary measures, or electronic oriented hazards and their measures. So we have to think about this electronic industry. We have to think about IT industries nowadays. Why it is needed? Because now we are we are using more and more electronic gadgets. So like mobiles, like desktop, like computers, laptop, palm top, etc. So the number of equipments, number of gadgets, that is electronic gadgets, are going to produce more and more, and in near future the number is tremendous. And for that purpose, while using these electronic gadgets, while working in these IT or electronic industries, we have to take care about some of the hazards, operations, or the equipments. So I'm talking about a specific diseases while working in these IT or electronic industries. Normally, we can understand how exactly we are working in these IT or electronic industries. So if you observe any type of electronic industry or IT industry, we are normally working on a single platform. So normally there is a table and chair arrangement or some working station design for that particular purpose, and we are working on that platform for 8 hours. So in the especially when we are talking about the IT industries, so in the IT industries the 8 hours operation is by sitting only. So we have to observe, we have to operate these computers or laptops on the table or some tabletops or the desktop or the PCs, and we are doing all these activities just by sitting on the chair. So you can understand, if your gesture, if your posture, if your body is not in a appropriate angle, or if you are not working in a particular procedure, if you are not following the appropriate practices which is needed to work on that tabletop for 8 hours, then there are some diseases which may be affected on your body. So some of the diseases I'm talking about, that one of the diseases is called as MSD. So what exactly this MSD is? It is musculoskeletal disorder. So what exactly this MSD is? It is the combination of muscle and skeleton and then disorder. So which type of disorder? And this disorder is affected on your muscles and skeleton, and that is why it is called as musculoskeletal disorders. So this is the disorder or a disease which may affect on your muscles or your skeleton or the combination, right? So it is a common and costly problem for people and companies across the world. MSDs are the single largest category for workplace injuries and are responsible for almost 30% of all worker compensation cost. So sometimes we know that some workers are complaining about the wrist pain. Sometimes some workers are complaining about the finger or thumb pains. Sometimes some are uh, talking about the shoulder pains, and sometimes some workers are talking about the back pain. Sometimes some are talking about the eye strains, sometimes headache, etc. So all these things are generally initially related to the MSDs. So when we are complaining about some muscles, when we are complaining about some skeleton, some bones issues, then we are talking about the MSDs. So if it is at the initial level, then it can be controlled easily uh, after some treatment, after some guidance, after some procedure which is adopted by that workers and which is guided by that particular doctor. So these are the economic and human cost. MSDs are unnecessary. The musculoskeletal disorders are preventable if it is at the initial level, or if you are taking care about your body parts at the initial level only. If you neglect these things, then that MSDs may not be preventable, because sometimes the bones, sometimes the muscles are permanently damaged due to the repetition of the same things, which is the wrong practice. So we have to observe whether the gesture, the posture, or your body movement, the body position is in a appropriate angle or not. If it is not, and if you are going to continue with the same pain, then the permanent damage may be there in your body part. So these are the definitions and some of the examples of these MSDs. So MSD are the injuries and disorders that affect the human body's movement or musculoskeletal systems. So that may affect on the muscles, tendons, ligaments, nerves, disc, blood vessels, etc. So depending on your condition, depending on your type of work, depending on the working hours, depending on the repetition of work, that may affect on the muscles, tendons, ligaments, nerves, disc, blood vessels, etc. Some MSDs are CTS, that is carpal tunnel syndromes, or tendonitis, muscles or tendon strain, ligament sprain, tension neck syndrome, then thoracic outlet compression, rotator cuff tendonitis, and many more. So these are some of the examples of MSDs. So with the help of these examples or the meanings of this example, you can understand why this may happen and how to prevent it. So it is exposure to risk factors. So when worker is exposed to MSDs, one of the MSDs or sometimes more than one MSDs, then there is some risk. So what exactly this risk? The risk factors, they begin to fatigue, right? So when fatigue outruns their body's recovery systems, they develop MSD or musculoskeletal imbalance. Over time, as fatigue continues to outrun recovery and the musculoskeletal imbalance persists, a musculoskeletal disorder develops. So, due to these issues, to avoid these issues on a severe basis, to avoid this severe risk, we have to take care at the initial level only. So when the risk level is negligible, we have to check why it is happened, why we are complaining about these body parts, why we are going to these through these pains, and then we have to contact to a supervisor, we have to contact to a doctor or a expert which is in the ergonomic division. Then these risk factors can be broken up into two categories, that is work related, that is ergonomic risk factors. Work related means ergonomic. So work related risk. So it is first one, and second one is individual related risk factors. So sometimes our individual activities are wrong, and that is why the risk may be there. So that is called as individual related risk. And if the working procedures are wrong, then it is called as work related risk factors. So suppose some workers are operating the particular machineries in a particular angle and with some body posture. So if it is the activity for 8 hours continuously, and if that particular person is going to complain about the back, about the shoulder, about the wrist, about the forearms, or some other body parts, then you should know that, you should understand that the working gesture or posture is wrong, or we have to change or modify that platform, we have to modify that working station, so that to reduce the hazard or to reduce the risk. So this diagram clearly showing you what exactly the MSD is going to achieve. So why these MSDs are created. So initially, if the ergonomic, that is work related issues, risk factors are there, and if you are knowing about these ergonomic risk factors, or if you are knowing about these individual risk factors, so after knowing these risk factors only, we have to take care about these gesture postures or working styles, etc. And we have to contact our doctors or ergonomic experts, and with the help of these guidelines or the proper or appropriate procedure which is given by these ergonomic experts, we have to follow this, and we have to minimize or solve this problem at this level only, where we have identified this risk factor that may be ergonomic one or individual. If it is not the case, if you are not going to control these ergonomic risk factor, then the force, repetition, and posture is going to convert it into MSD. So after some time, over time, exposure to risk factor leads to MSD, that is musculoskeletal disorder. So if you want to avoid these MSDs, then we have to take care at this level. If the risk factors are identified, or not control this risk factor at this level, then the practices or poor fitnesses or poor health habits is going to convert these factors into MSDs. So that is on the gesture, depending on the posture, depending on the working style, depending on your health habits, depending on your fitnesses, whether these risk factors or ergonomic conditions are to MSG or not, that depends on your response only, right? So we have to care about these things so that we can avoid this MSD. So this is again the diagram where you can understand. So if you are identified or knowing about these ergonomic or individual risk factors, and these fatigue and recovery is imbalanced, then it is going to convert into MSD. So we have to recover at the initial level only, so that this fatigue is. So if you are not going to take a treatment, if you are not going to follow the guidelines which is given by the doctor or ergonomic experts, then recovery is going to become difficult, and then this fatigue is more as compared to this recovery. If it is the case, then it is going to convert into MSD. So that may be a permanent, or that may be a temporary damage to your body parts. So this diagram also showing you what exactly or how the time is important. So with respect to time, these are the factor that is called as how the fatigue or how the MSD is going to achieve. So if your health is good, Then if you are facing some problem, so when we are going to or moving towards this line, it means x-axis. So with respect to time, that is on the x-axis. So with respect to time, if the problem persists, if the even after the identification of that problem, then that may be converted into average health issues. Then that health issues may be converted into a fatigue, and then we feel the discomfort, and then we may feel some pains to that particular body part. And if we still continue with the wrong practices, wrong gesture and posture, wrong working styles, then we may lose a particular function of that body part, and it may be converted into MSD, right? So this is very important, so that you can understand at the initial level only, with respect to time only, when your health is good, then only you have to identify these risk factors, and we have to take the proper treatment. We have to follow a proper procedure to avoid these MSDs. Work related risk factors. So workplace design, we already uh, discuss that when we are talking about the IT industry, when we are talking about the electronic industry, so that table, chair, desktop, laptop, whatever the equipments are used, that is nothing but working station. So we have to take care about these workplace designs, because sometimes if you are using these laptop, desktop, etc. for 8 hours on a continuous basis, and if your body weight is more, if your height is more, of your body weight is very less, of your body weight height is very less, or sometimes if your distance between your eyes and desktop, laptop, etc. is very less, or sometimes the brightness is more, then all these factors may affect on your body. For that purpose, we have to take care about these chair heights, we have to take care about these table heights, we have to take care about these distance between this laptop or desktop and your body. So we have to take care about these workplace designs. When a worker is asked to do work that is outside the body's capabilities and limitations, he is these musculoskeletal. So sometimes complain about these body's capabilities and limitations, that I can't work more than 4 hours continuously on the laptop or desktop, due to maybe due to the age issue, maybe due to the distance issue between these laptops and your eyes, maybe due to the wrong gesture and or wrong practices adopted by that persons. So whatever may be the issues, if the body's capabilities and limitations are over, then we have to shift the work, we have to shift the working style, or we have to adopt some other workplace design or service station. If this is the situation, then objective evaluation of the workstation design tells us the workers recovery system will not be able to keep up. So if the fatigue is more, then sometimes it is happen that these MSDs are on a permanent damage to that particular part. So the evaluation will tell us that ergonomic risk factors are present. The worker is at risk of developing a musculoskeletal imbalance. So if the fatigue and recovery imbalance is there, then we are knowing that the MSD is definitely there. So we have to balance this fatigue and recovery, and for that purpose only, we have to take care about this designing the workplaces and service stations, and also we must know about our body's capabilities and limitations. So there are three primary ergonomic risk factors, that is high task repetition, then forceful exertions, and repetitive or sustained awkward postures. So these are the three primary ergonomic risk factors. So repetition is on higher sides if the same cycle is there, if same work is there on for 1,000 times, for more than 1,000 times, for 100 times, depending on the conditions, and if it is for continuous 8 hours, then it is called as high task repetitions. So many work or these tasks are involved repetition cycles, and we have to care frequently, controlled by hourly or daily production targets. So high task repetition when combined with other risk factors such as high force and awkward portion can contribute to the formation of MSD. A job is considered highly repetitive if the cycle time is 30 seconds or less. So there are some jobs. Suppose I have to fit a particular uh, body or a machinery with the help of screw arrangement or sometimes the nut bolt arrangement, and if I'm going to do this activity for 1,000 times in a day, then it is very difficult for me to work efficiently because there may be some issues or some MSD may be there. So if the cycle time is 30 seconds or less, because if nut bolt is there or if screw arrangement is there or some welding spots are there, so these activities can be done within 30 seconds. But the repetition is more. So if it is the case, then it is a high task repetition factor. If forceful exertion is there, so many work tasks require high force loads on the human body. Muscle efforts increases in response to high force requirements, increasing associated fatigue, which can lead to MSD. Sometimes manual material handlings are the requirement in the industry. Say for example, in the tire industry, so if the manual handling is the requirement in the tire industry, then to move these uh, tractor tires or the truck tires, we have to force these tires, we have to lift some materials with more force than the expected, so which may load on our human body. So these are called as forceful exertions. Then repetitive or sustained awkward postures. So sometimes we have to bend, we have to stretch our muscles, we have to stretch our joints, so which is not recommended, but sometimes due to these activities this can affect on our muscles, on our joints. So joints of the body are most efficient when they operate closer to the mid-range motion of the joint. Risk of MSD is increased when joints are work outside of these mid-range repeatedly or for sustained periods of time without adequate recovery time. So exposure to these workplaces risk factors puts workers at higher level of MSDs. So for that purpose, we have to avoid these repetitions, especially when the cycle time is 30 seconds or less. We have to avoid these forceful exertions, that is we have to divide this heavy work, we have to avoid this lifting or forcing these high weight material, and we have to avoid these repetitive or sustained awkward postures to avoid the MSDs. So this is related to the individual related risk factors. So we have discussed about the ergonomic or work related factors. So these is human beings are multidimensional, limiting ourselves to a singular cause of MSDs will limit our ability to create a prevention strategy that addresses the multidimensional worker. So we need to address both workplace risk factors and individual risk factors. So we have to take care about all these factors, that is work related or ergonomic and individual also. So balancing of all these factors, always go for the balancing of this fatigue and recovery. So to avoid this MST, we have to balance fatigue and recovery, and to balance this fatigue and recovery, we have to balance between these work related factors and individual related factors. So these individual risk factors includes poor work practices, then poor overall health habits, and poor rest and recovery. So the workers who use poor work practices, that is body mechanics, lifting techniques, are introducing unnecessary risk factors that can contribute to MSD. So already SOPs are involved, some specific guidelines are provided how to do this particular activity and what exactly the steps should be followed. But sometimes some workers are not going to follow these SOPs. Sometimes these workers are not going to follow these particular guidelines, some gesture posture practices, some lifting techniques, some forcing techniques, etc. And then due to these poor work practices, they may contribute to MSDs. Poor overall health habits. So the workers are having some bad habits, that may be a smoking, that may be a drinking, then sometimes more body weight, or some exhibit numerous other poor health habits, are putting themselves at risk for not only MSDs but also for other chronic diseases that will shorten their life and health span. Suppose some workers are having these smoking habits and they are working in the environment where carbon particles are there, or some particles are there in the working environment which is directly contacted or gain to the respiratory tract, and that may be contaminated to the lungs. So the life of that particular person is going to decrease. Then poor rest and recovery. So if for a particular repetition order for heavy work, we have to take the rest after some times. So that is the need of that hour, need of that particular work conditions. So for example, if you are working in the ferrous industry, if you are working near furnace or on the furnace, if you are working near boiler, etc., if the temperature is more, if the heavy work is there, if the repetition is more, then you need a rest. So for that purpose, some other groups are also developing some of the industries that after 2 hours, after 1 hour, or after 4 hours, so that person's rest is necessary, and after some times of the rest, then they are again going to join that particular work. So this is needed. If it is not done, then it is again a risk factor that is called as poor rest and recovery. Because if you are not taking the rest after some time or depending on the condition, then recovery is difficult. And you are knowing that if recovery is difficult, then fatigue is more, and then that may contribute to the MSD. Then poor nutrition, fitness, and hydration. So for these type of workers or work practices, we need water, we need some foods. Specifically when you are working on a particular machinery with some bending movement, some body movement, some repetition task, some heavy work, some forcing work, etc., then we have to take care about this a proper nutritional diet. Then if you are working on a lifting manually materials, then if you are forcing some materials, drums, etc., then your fitness should be good. And if you are working in an area where the temperature is more, or if you are working in the area where the humidity is more, then we have to take care about the hydration of our body. So depending on the condition, depending on the type of work, we have to take care about these nutrition, fitness, and hydrations. If it is not done, then definitely this will affect on our health. Then individual differences. People varying their tendency to get MSDs. Gender is a factor with higher rate in women than men, and that is why doctors or factor manager or certifying surgeon always recommended to avoid the heavy work, to avoid the repetition of work, to avoid the particular type of work where the health of women may badly affected as compared to the men. So that gender is one of the factor. Then obesity is also a factor, with overweight individuals having a higher risk of some MSDs, specifically lower back. So if your obesity is more, obviously the body weight is more and it affects on the lower back. So that person with high obesity or overweight is not going to handle the lifting practices, not going to handle repetition practices, or not going to handle a specific task where due to this overweight is not going to continue that work for many hours. As with most chronic diseases, MSDs have multiple risk factors, both occupational and non-occupational. In addition to work demands, other aspects of daily life such as sports, housework may present physical stresses to the musculoskeletal tissues. The musculoskeletal tissues and peripheral nerves tissues are affected by systemic diseases such as rheumatoid arthritis, gout, lupus, and diabetes. So, depending on the condition of that person, so these diseases may be occur due to the health issues. Risk varies by age, gender, socio-economic status, and ethnicity. Other suspected risk factors include obesity, smoking, muscle strength, and other aspects of work capacities. Then how to prevent these type of risk? So prevention of MSDs relies upon the identification of risk factors either by self-report, observations on the job, or measurement of postures. So sometimes if you are going to complain about the back pain, if you are going to complain about the shoulder pain, etc., then on that basis we have to take care these activities, how to change the body gesture or posture, how to change this manual handling to the mechanical handling or to the automation, and then only we can prevent these MSDs. Once risk factors have been determined, there are several interventions methods which could be used to prevent the development of the MSDs. The target of MSDs prevention efforts is often the workplace in order to identify incident rates of both disorders and exposure to unsafe conditions. The key to MSD prevention is the hard work. So preventing MSDs is a very hard work. Why it is hard work? Because we have to study, we have to analyze these movement, these body movements, these ergonomic factors, the individual factors, the SOPs, the guidelines given by that manufacturers for that particular machinery, for the furnaces, for the equipments, etc. And then we have to identify why these complaints, why these pains are occurred in that particular persons. So for the identification also, it is required a lengthy period, and these after long periods we have to analyze, we have to conclude, we have to give some results that due to this particular activity, due to this gesture or posture, due to this body movement, due to this body angle, these particular disease or MSD is created. And then we have to think about the solutions, the remedial activities, and then these MSDs can be prevented. And that is why it is called as hard work, because we have to go through these all procedures or the activities. So prevention is a proactive activity. You already know that if MSDs are results of reactive approach to ergonomic and healthcare, that prevention is going to require a proactive approach to ergonomic and healthcare. So taking care or the prevention is better than cure. We already know that. So this diagram or picture clearly showing you that how to prevent these MSDs. That is from the proactive approach, that is proactive ergonomics. So this is ergonomic controls. So work related activities we have to control, body related activities we have to control. If some engineering controls are there, means engineering remedies or solutions are there, then we can go for that. If some administrative controls are required, then we can go for that. If combination of all these activities can be there, so that then we have to adopt these engineering as well as administrative controls. What exactly this engineering and administrative control is? Suppose if the manual handling is going to replace by the mechanical handling with the help of forklift trucks, with the help of some other machineries, if you are going to handle these materials, then it is called as engineering control. If sometimes the SOPs are good, but the workers are not going to follow these SOPs, or workers are not going to follow the proper gesture and posture, then we have to supervise these activities, we have to observe these activities, and then we have to guide that particular person that you should go in this way only. So this is nothing but administrative control. So depending on the condition, depending on the activities, we have to go for this engineering or administrative controls. And then after getting the solution, we have to maintain that health and we have to improve the performance. So if you are going to improve your health, obviously you are going to increase the efficiency of your work, which is guaranteed effect on your good productions. Then the another factor is individual control. So if you identify that this particular MSD is due to these individual risk factors, then we have to focus on these individual controls. So the solution or the remedies may be a workplace athlete training. So a particular trainer, some ergonomic experts may guide you regarding these individual activities. Then early interventions. So at the initial level only, after pains or after complaining that worker, you have to identify what exactly the need of our is. Then warm up stretching. So sometimes before going for the heavy operations, before going for the repetitive operations, or before going for the high temperatures or the cold temperatures operations, we have to go for the warm up. So that is called as warm up stretching. And work recovery tools. So if you are going to adopt these practices for the individual controlling, then also we can avoid these MSDs. And after getting these solutions, we can maintain the health and we can improve our performance. So these are some of the controlling methods for the engineering controls as well as individual control. So these are the proactive ergonomics and proactive healthcare activities in the MSDs. Then proactive ergonomics, it is a process identified ergonomic risk factors and then reduces them through the engineering as well as administrative control. So we have already discussed all these things with the help of that picture or the diagram. Then in the administrative control, we have already discussed with the examples. This is the work practice control, then job rotation and counteractive stretch breaks. So these are some of the methods under the administrative controls. So we can adopt the job rotation. So after 2 hours, some other person is going to do that job, and after rest, then the same person, the previous person can join that job again. So depending on the requirement, depending on the conditions, we can go for these job rotations. And some counteractive stretch breaks also is needed depending on the conditions. So awkward postures should be avoided. So all these things can be done under the administrative control. So remember that some of the practices that it is implemented before any injury occurs is viewed as a continuous improvement process, is tied to strategic initiatives and organizational goals, gets the funding and leadership supports it needs to succeed, develop talent, trains up a workforce with an above average ergonomics IQ, get transformational results. We have to think about all these ergonomic processes, that is proactive ergonomic process with these activities or characteristics, then and then only we can avoid these MSDs.